Alright folks, welcome back to the third iteration of patch 1.6.1 on the common test server. And for this video, we'll take a closer look at the Object 703 version number 2. It is a premium tier 8 Russian heavy tank with the new mechanics of the dual barrel system. So this vehicle has two 122s that could simultaneously deal about 800 alpha, sometimes to a tier 6. If you think killing a tier 6 with the IS-3A with 3 rounds of the 122 in the auto reloader is too slow, well, this vehicle could basically shotgun blast a tier 6 back to hell. That is insane of a meme. Well, there are a few drawbacks, but I do recommend you guys watch a video before this one where I talk about the actual mechanics of the dual barrel gun, how there is a charge up time, a lockdown time, but that is very important because this mechanic is somewhat confusing, so make sure to watch that video first. But for this vehicle, it is also not surprising that it is currently a placeholder model on the common test server as well as the super test server. So there's no actual mechanics of the dual barrel system in the common test server and the super test server. It is still being developed behind doors, so we only can actually look at the armor model and some of the other stats like crew members and ammo loadout and speed, but it is still a heavy tank and armor is still pretty important. So yeah, let's take a look at this vehicle. So it is basically a Corvette's 1 without the mud guards. So some of you guys are mentioning that it looks practically like a Corvette's 1, which I agree after taking a look back, but it doesn't have the mark guards. It has a larger IS-3-ish of a turret with the infamous gun access port weak spot. So this plate right here is meant to access the guns, replacing them or fixing them, but it's only 20 millimeters, and if you have a large caliber gun or any caliber that's above 60 millimeters, it will overmatch and auto pin the roof of this vehicle. But it is still Russian, so some of the most OP premiums are Russians, like the Object 252U, like the IS-3As against tier 6s. Holy shit. This thing basically comes with a shotgun. Buckshot at tier 6 back to the garage. Oh my god. That is so unfair. I mean, there is no tier 10s that could do that other than the v.2 and that got removed from the actual tech tree as a special tank now. So there's no like one-shotting tier 10s against tier 8s. There's a lot of tier 8s that could one-shot a tier 6. The spike in power difference. But it looks pretty nice. I mean, it's Russian, so hey. Cramped crew interior, so if you do get pinned, a lot of your modules will get damaged, including your ammo rack. But this vehicle has a slope downwards vehicle side or hull side, so that's pretty good. So this is actually space armor, and if you play vehicles like the Object 257, basically the side armor is OP. So it's still flat for the tracks, but for the above the track part of the hull, it's sloped downwards with guards. So this part is basically auto bounce, and that's pretty nice. It is a premium, makes more credits, but for now it is only a placeholder model, so it only gets one stat for the 122, so it is a modified D25T, kind of the same gun that's on the IS-3A or on the IS-5, shooting APCR shells and high explosive anti-tank for the gold round. Has a crew of 4, so fits with most Russian tanks. And we won't take a look at firepower until the end with the actual preliminary stats, because these are all placeholders other than the gun depression and elevation. So it has 5 degrees of gun depression, Russian, and 18 elevation, but it gets actually 7 degrees of gun depression with the 100mm version, with the twin 100mm, but for that version, you get less alpha. Way less alpha in terms of burst. So it's like a single shell of the 122. So that's not fun. But we'll take a look at the firepower last. But for survivability, there are actually 2 versions of this vehicle. Well, technically there are 3 versions of this vehicle. One's on the common test server, one's on the super test server, and one's with the 100mm, the twin 100mm. So on the common test server, we have a less armored version of the vehicle that has better hull traverse and slightly more view range by 10. But that's pretty much it. So the one that's on the super test server version has the better armor, and that is practically the same hull armor as the Corvette's one. So we will take a look at the Corvette's one coming in right up, but this is the version with 120mm of hull front. So it's not as good as 140, obviously, but it is like a IS-3 in terms of hull armor, so it's about 185 or so. Lower plate is obviously better, but at a distance it gets worse, obviously. But it's about 180 up front, 190 or so, so it's okay. It's not great. You will get pinned mostly. I mean, most of the tier 8 mediums have been buffed to above 200mm of pin, so without sloping, you will be pinned. And like the IS-3, this vehicle has the infamous gun access port that is only 20mm, so if you have any gun that's above 60mm, you will overmatch this gun access port and automatically pin. You also get Q+ for the turret top, so that can also be pinned. It's about 90mm, one for the loader, one for the commander. Side armor is sloped downwards, so that's pretty good. So yeah, practically auto bounce, but side armor is about 85. It's 100 between the tracks, that's pretty good. But side scrape is pretty good deal for this vehicle, and pretty bouncy too. So yeah, try to side scrape if you can. Don't expose your drive wheel, obviously. You'll get pinned and be detract. Rear armor is only 60 for the hull rear, and 90 for the turret rear. So it's like a large IS-3 turret basically. But this is only the softer quote-unquote version of the vehicle with less armor in terms of stats. Let's take a look at the Corvette's one, which is the same hull armor practically as the super test version of this vehicle. So it still has the single shot turret obviously, but the hull armor is 140 for the super test server version of this vehicle as well, of the 703 version number 2. What a tongue twister. But for 140 at the front, yeah, still 20 more millimeters effective, obviously. Still better though. Lower plate, 200 at a distance. Closer up, it's about 220, 215. But if you side scrape, side armor is 85, the same as the current version, but it's still 100 millimeters for side armor between the tracks. But as you can see, the upper plate gets a lot bouncier. So yeah, if you have 140 for the hull front, that is dramatically better at tricking people into baiting into shots. Like if you expose the upper plate going around a corner like this without exposing your drive wheel, that is a perfect bait of shots into the lower plate, into the upper plate, and you can side scrape. So yeah, 140 for the hull front is better obviously than 120. So there are 2 versions of this vehicle, and the preliminary stats that were posted on the forums feature a 140mm upper plate, so I presume it's the 140mm upper plate. But that version doesn't have 50 more health, so it only has 1500 health, and has better turret front at 220 something. So I'll show you guys all the stats obviously, but yeah, okay. So hull armor wise, it's still better than some other heavy tanks at tier 8, like IS-3 for example. So I couldn't complain. Now this server's version, or this common test server's version, has 0.5 less horsepower per ton ratio at 12, which is okay. It's not great, it's not bad, but 720 horsepower, weighs about 60 tons. Top speed is better than the Super Test Server version at 42. Super Test Server version is 38. So I'll show you guys all the picture comparison, all the stuff, but has better reverse speed as well. On the Common Test Server version, it's 20 compared to 15 on the Super Test Server version. Both have the same hull traverse. This vehicle has better turret traverse at about 35. Is it 35 or 20? 25. It's not 35. What the hell am I talking about? 35 is like a slow medium. Alright, but this version is more mobile, I guess. Quote unquote. Faster in terms of straight line, but both have the same camo. And this vehicle has 10 more meters of view range at 360. Radio is the same. So armor wise, I would prefer the 140mm version, even though it's slower. It has better armor and it is a heavy tank, so I would prefer the better armored, slower version. And it's not even that slow, it's just slower in terms of top speed by only 4 kilometers per hour and by 5 for reverse. It only has like 0.5 less horsepower per ton ratio, and that is it. For a lot better frontal hull armor, I would definitely trade that, and better turret front armor as well. But oh, we forgot to look at this turret front. So it is sloped backwards. There are strips of 175 right here. So it's about 180, slightly rounded. But if you have a high caliber gun, just pin the. Is that gunner scopes? There's only one gunner scope. There's no one. Oh, there might be one. I don't even see it. But yeah, just shoot for the gunner scope and you'll pin right here. But yeah, let's talk about the preliminary stats. So I'll show you guys the current picture right now, and this is the picture we're going off of. So there are lots of stats for the gun, but as you can see, the hull armor is 140 for the hull front, 100 for the hull sides, and 220 for the turret front. So it's a lot better in terms of frontal armor on that version of the tank. So we're going with that version, making the final ratings and stuff. But let's talk about the firepower. So it's a 13 seconds reload per gun, but if it reloads like the auto reloader, the second gun gets the obvious shorter time. The first gun to reload is about 20 seconds or so from the video. So I took an exact look at the video. It's about 20 seconds and then about 13 seconds or so, or 14 seconds or so. So it's like an auto reloader. It's not like the inverse auto reloader that's on the IS-3A. So it doesn't work like that. It works like the Italians. So for emptying the whole clip, quote unquote, emptying both chambers, it takes a lot longer to reload. Now you have a time called preparation time. That's 3.5. What this means is if you hold down the mouse button and click the left mouse button for 3.5 seconds in order to fire both guns simultaneously. So you cannot just click and you fire 2 guns at the same time. It doesn't work like that. So there's actually a cast time, like a large spell, if you will, if you play MMO RPGs. There's actually a cast time where you have to wait 3.5 seconds onto a target. Then afterwards, you can fire both guns simultaneously. Now, there's a reloading lock time, and that is 7 seconds. What this means is after you fire the 2 shells from simultaneously the 2 guns, you have to wait 7 seconds before starting to reload. So technically, you have to add 7 seconds to the reload timer for the first shell after you fire 2 guns simultaneously. So basically, if you want to use the 2 gun feature, you have to pay about 10.5 seconds. So that would dramatically hamper your reload time, or DPM obviously, but that would dramatically hamper your DPM output for the burst. So it's like a weird, I don't know, weird-esque way of playing a auto reloader if you think about it. There's also 5 seconds of gun changing time, and what that means is after you shoot one gun, and if you want to shoot the other gun, you have to wait 5 seconds. So it's like a autoloader, but the intershell reload time is like 5 seconds basically. So that is super long. Accuracy 0.44, garbage. 3.5 seconds of aim time, garbage. 20 degrees per second turret reverse, heavy tank, garbage. 5 degrees of gun depression, 18 elevation. It does have 40 rounds, which is better than the 30 rounds that's on the IS-3s or IS-6s. So 40 rounds is a godsend, but it is the same gun penetration as the IS-3A, as the IS-5, or the... what else is using the same gun? The Curvet's one, I think, but we don't have that thing. Alright, so APCR as standard, 270 as high explosive anti-tank. But that's the preliminary stats. So let's go towards the comparison right now. So here you can see, yeah, Curvet's one has, I think, better armor, obviously. So on the Super Test Server version, you obviously want to have 140mm of hull front plating, as well as the 220 for the turret front. But obviously that doesn't compare to the Object 252U. And the burst damage, I still don't think it's comparable to the IS-3A. Like, if you want to have a softer vehicle hull armor and having the burst potential, I think the IS-3A does your killing of tier 6s pretty well. But this is basically having the shotgun blast feature that is new and fresh and whatever the against tier 6s. So if you want to shotgun a tier 6, this is the vehicle you want to go with. But like I said, please watch the previous video talking about how the mechanics will work for the dual gun system. But yeah, I still think the IS-3A with the auto reloader is better at killing stuff if you want to prefer the IS-3A. But this vehicle has, if it has the better armor version, a lot better armor than the IS-3A, obviously. So it's still Russian, still gets the crappy 350 meters of view range for the common test server, for the actual super test server version. That's what I meant. But yeah, I would still prefer the 140mm version with the Curvet's 1's hull. So basically 20 more millimeters for the upper plate and better turret front. But I still think it has the gun access port weak spot that's on the top of the turret, so be wary of that. But for the final review of this vehicle, if it has the better armor, if it still gets about the same stats as for the preliminary stats, about the gun locking, about the preparation time, going off the armor itself, the armor is good for a tier 8, even though the view range is garbage. Armor is like, if you have the same gun that's on the IS-3, but you have the same armor, I will give this vehicle about 8 out of 10. So it's still pretty decent, but it's about this gun. So this gun is a weird variable factor in terms of judging it. It might be super crap, and you just use this gun as an auto reloader. That's all you care about. You might not even use the double gun feature and shooting simultaneously. So it's the same way that I felt about the Italians when the Italians were introduced. I couldn't tell. I mean, it's a lot more comfortable, obviously, than using the T69, obviously. It has better penetration. And it's better than the Skoda T27 because sometimes you only need one shell. Sometimes you need the burst. You have the flexibility and the penetration compared to the Skoda T27. But what if this dual barrel system is the beast? The best against killing tier 10s, like surprise burst damage. You don't have to expose yourself for the longest time. But still, there is the reloading lock time, which is 7 seconds. I don't know why is it that long. And the preparation time, you have to hold the M1 mouse button or the left mouse button for 3.5 seconds in order to fire the gun simultaneously. And then you have to wait 7 seconds before you start to reload. That is not great. So basically you're wasting one shell of DPM for reload. for actually not reloading, for just waiting. Then you start to reload the shell. So maybe Wargaming will change the reloading lock time to like 3 seconds, change the preparation time to like 1 second or 1.5 seconds because it's taking too long. So yeah, we'll see. But overall, if it has better gun loading time and reload time and other stuff, and the lock time is a lot better, I would give it like 9 out of 10. Just because of the memes, just because of the apocalypse tank-esque of a meme. But I still think the lock time and the preparation time is a little bit too long. But based on the current stats, if it comes out, I still think it's an 8 out of 10. If it's better in terms of locking time and preparation time, and the hull armor is 140 or plus, I will give it 9 out of 10 or even more possibly. But you can just basically spam 2 gold shells and that will deal 800 damage. 780, but still about 800 damage. So obviously this vehicle is not as strong in terms of hull armor as something as the 430U. This is a medium. It has 160 millimeters of frontal hull armor. What the fuck? 250 millimeters effective to about 240 for the middle. Lower plate, it's 200 obviously, but side scrape with this thing is also pretty good. Yeah, side armor is only 60, so about 25 less, but it does have the side skirts and not only 90 between the tracks, so yeah, the frontal upper plate on this thing is a beast. Also, the cupola doesn't stick out. There's no such thing as cupola weak spot, but for the object 703, if it has that armor, I will give it 10 out of 10, even with the long loading time of the locking and the preparation time and other stuff. I will give that 10 out of 10 because the armor is just fucking amazing. But yeah, if you put this thing on the object 252U, I will give that 10 out of 10. If you put this thing on a medium tank like a T-44, I will give that possibly a 9 out of 10. You don't even need the hull armor, just need the speed. But yeah, there you go, folks. The object 703 version number 2. So hopefully you get more details about the stats. Hopefully you get to try it on the sandbox or the super test server. I don't have access to the super test server. What the hell am I? I'm not even a community contributor. I'm not even a CC. I just talk shit. Alright, so there you go, folks. The object 703 version number 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.